Hello everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Transfer Podcast. I am Chris Pajak. I am joined today by Jay Pearson and Andy Bell for this one. Loads of little stories to get our teeth into today, gentlemen, so thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
We're going to start off with the Independent Miguel Delaney, who reported the belief around the Liverpool camp is the transfer business will finally accelerate next week as the opening of the Premier League game away to Ipswich Town on August 18th comes into view. Liverpool are now looking for a centre-half, a defensive midfielder and a wide forward, although potentially two of the latter. The most high-profile of those is Newcastle United, Anthony Gordon, who has long been hugely keen on the move. Jay, that's quite a good sentence to hear from Miguel Delaney, I suppose, isn't it? Because, you know, that's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 signings for Liverpool.
In a month, with 2 weeks to go before the season starts, and very Liverpool of us at the minute.
It's
crazy.
It's a bit nuts. Like I was expecting 2 this summer, to be honest with you, mate. 4, I'd be very, very surprised if we get them done in a week. Given
what happened last year when we signed a good few midfielders, I'd be very surprised if we got 4 in different positions. Again, we made a joke, didn't we, before about them all being left-footed. So we'd be like a car with its front wheel gone on the left-hand side, wouldn't we? Really top-heavy on the left-hand side. I can't see that happening, but it's nice to hear. But we did get word from Richard Hughes, didn't we, that our business, if any, would have been accelerated in August anyway. So that pathway sort of marries up at the minute. Yeah,
it does, Andy. I mean, are you surprised at the positions, or is it as expected?
I am a little bit, to be honest. Yeah, I'm surprised that the stuff coming out of the club seems to be that we're really targeting a number 6, because I actually think we've got some players who can play there. Now, we don't really have enough evidence from the friendlies about, for example, where he sees Szoboszlai's long-term future. In terms of his position, he plays number 10 in the first game, but that's because we have no striker. He drops back in the second game, so you're not really sure what he wants to do there. What does he want to do with McAllister? Curtis Jones is playing really well. We seem to have options there. I would be more concerned sort of about, as we've mentioned there, the centre half. I'd like to get another one of those in. And probably a forward on the right-hand side, to be honest, because we know that, Mo Salah potentially only has a year at most left if we don't extend. And we're very well stocked on the left-hand side, as we've talked about. So, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised, but we haven't seen exactly how Arne Slot wants to play. We've got a couple of different games to go off, but we don't know exactly what his sort of vision is for this Liverpool team yet. So, let's see.
And I think it's really interesting. We'll start with the talk about Anthony Gordon then. Doesn't seem over at the moment. I've got an article up now from the Mirror. Now, they're reporting that Newcastle are opening talks for him to sign a new long-term deal at St James's Park. So Anthony Gordon will be offered talks over a new contract to ward off interest from Liverpool. The England winger was unsettled by being touted to Liverpool for 100 million as the Geordies scrambled to raise cash before the end of June to avoid a PSR break and point deduction. This was obviously all, Jay, in light of the Joe Gomez going one way, 45 million quid. Us buying Anthony Gordon at 70 million. They're looking at more like 100 million now that they've sorted the PSR problems for last season. They're still going to have more problems at the end of this season, I believe. But it is quite interesting. Obviously, it doesn't sound like this story's going to go away unless he signs a new deal. But if they offer him a new deal and he says no, that really does play into Liverpool's hands, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think this is a good thing. Sometimes you get contracts being touted for a player who you're interested in at a club and you go, all right, they're offering him a new contract now, he's obviously going to stay. It's not the case. I think over the last sort of few weeks, it's so obvious now that he wants to go to Liverpool. He said that, and it's unofficially come out that he wants to be a Liverpool player. So I think this is a good thing for us, because I think they'll offer him a new contract, he'll turn it down, and then there'll be no other option then. And it'll just, if anything, speed it up a little bit.
What about the fee then, Andy? The £100 million. Is that too much for Anthony Gordon?
On the face of it, you would say yes. This is someone who's had one very good season in the Premier League. You look at, for example, some of the players we've signed in the past, and Liverpool are very good at getting that player who's on the brink of becoming world class and on that sort of crest of a wave. Then we get him and he's world class for us. And his numbers last season, 11 goals, 10 assists, very similar to the numbers that Mane posted in his final season at Southampton before coming to Liverpool. Jota had a couple of seasons around that. And I think Salah, albeit a different league, was 15 goals, 13 assists. So, the numbers are quite similar. It's whether Liverpool are confident that that's not just sort of a flash in the pan, because Gordon's numbers in the season before that weren't very impressive, although he was playing for a dreadful Everton side. So, if we see that as our long-term future in the left wing, then the market's obviously massively inflated and seems to keep inflating every single year with the transfer fees. So 100 million now is what, probably 50 million 10 years ago, you would say.
British tax as well, isn't it? Because he's British.
Yeah.
Totally.
There's always a tax for being British as well, which is annoying.
I think it's going to be difficult in terms of there's going to be a bit of tax on, Newcastle will not want to be seen to be selling one of their best players. You think back to even the early days of Abu Dhabi, Man City, it didn't seem to me that they sold any of their best players on. That'll be a bit of a blow to their project, you would think. So, when the news broke out, all the Newcastle journalists initially were saying, things about Anthony Gordon wants to leave, he's forcing a move here, trying to make him out to be the bad guy. And I guess if they offer him a new contract and he says no, they get to sort of put their hands up and say, listen, we did everything we could. He wanted to leave. Our hands were tied. So I think it'll all be a bit of stage management, all be a bit of PR now. But I think, I'm quite encouraged by the idea that he might end up a Liverpool player this week.
I am as well. I really like him as a player. I think 100 million does seem excessive, but if that's the market, that's the market, and it's not my money, so I don't really care too much, to be honest with you. I like to see Liverpool go and sign big, shiny, new forwards.
Especially for that money as well, because we've never, ever gone anywhere.
Yeah, we've obviously made the bid, but never managed to get Casado.
And we earn ourselves the right a little bit, don't we, to spend bigger money like that, because we have been very, sensible,
frugal.
We've had no issues with PSR. So we have the right to maybe spend a little bit extra if there's a player we really want, because we've earned that right by being sensible in previous years.
That's true, that, and then obviously it looks like he's played the majority of his career on the left hand side, but he can play on that right hand side as well. Like I don't know what Arne Slot is doing. I don't think anybody does, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's a sort of a way of describing this. But when I think about Darwin Núñez playing up front for Liverpool, I don't think you need a left-footed right winger as much. I know it's the fashion, and I know if you speak to anyone under 25, it's like, whoa, what do you mean, lads? But I do remember football before. Left inverted wingers before Arjen Robben and started doing it basically in the Premier League. And here's the thing, right?
You mean Giggsy and Beckham?
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying Liverpool should play like that, but there are only a finite number of chances that go around a team. Now you've got someone in Mo Salah who takes about 4 shots a game, and you've got Darwin Núñez who takes about 5 shots a game. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create the one guy gets your shot or most of your shots, and to do that, actually, if you want Núñez to be the guy to take the shots, then you put a provider next to him, not a goal scorer. And I do think the balance has never quite been right between Salah and Núñez, because they are both chance magnets who like to score goals and stuff like that. So actually having someone like an Anthony Gordon who can play on the right, who is more of a provider because he's using his right foot over there, actually might be a sensible thing. It might not be something Slot's thinking about, but for me, it kind of makes sense.
It does, and you go back to the Mane, Salah, Firmino, that's why it works so well, because Salah is the shot-hungry guy, and his 2 men up front were helping provide that, and obviously they weighed in with a lot themselves, didn't they? So we've lost that balance since they've left, obviously, and you're never going to recreate that magic, because those 3 individuals as a collective are just, it was unbelievable, it was world class. But it's like what Andy said before, you can bring these players in and they can elevate to that level, and maybe that's all we're looking for the likes of Núñez, who needs that little bit extra from that player. And yet, if he plays on the right-hand side, with it being left-footed, he can do certain things. If he wants to play on the left, that's fine. God knows how he's going to fit in on the left-hand side with everyone we've got. But what you're saying there is absolutely true when you've got a shot magnet like Darwin Núñez.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is as well, from what we read into the friendlies, Carvalho and Salah are running in behind, almost all the time, Andy. Mm-hmm. That is what Anthony Gordon is very good at, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And I think, interesting the point on the right-hand side, so what it seems like, I've read a couple of things on, I never watched Feyenoord under Arne Slot, but I've read a couple of things on the tactics, and he seems to like the wingers sort of cutting inside, and then the fullbacks do the big overlap. Now, on the left-hand side, if your left backs are Robertson and Tsimikas, they're going to do that all the time. On the right-hand side, if the fullback's Bradley, he's going to do that. But we know Trent can sort of come inside, and is comfortable coming inside and playing a little bit more centrally. He's also comfortable sort of bombing up and getting crosses in from a wide area. So, if you were to play Anthony Gordon on the right, I don't think that's what we'll sign him for. But if you have to play him on the right, and Trent sort of coming inside, they can do a little bit more variation on that side than what they can on the left. It's just the interesting thing about how many players we have there. We've got Jota, Gakpo, Núñez, Diaz can play there as well. And I'd imagine probably
if Gordon happens, then it'll probably see Diaz move on, just because I'm not sure where he'd get his opportunities at that point. Like last season, Diaz, 8 goals, 5 assists. We were all really sort of underwhelmed by that, I think, and we're all a little bit concerned that he's not the same player post-injury. If we decide, Gordon doesn't work for us this window and we're going to give Luis Diaz another season to prove himself on the left, I'll be like, fair enough, I can get on board with that. Simultaneously, if we do the swap, I'd be happy enough and I'd be excited by that as well.
Yeah, I think that excites me. Like, Anthony Gordon does excite me. Like, I think Diaz is a great player, to be honest with you. I think he gets a little bit too much focus on his lack of output, as it were.
He'd probably been compared to Sadio.
Yeah.
Anyone who came in after Sadio to be that first choice on that left-hand side was always going to have that pressure. And he's not the same player as Sadio Mane. And that's what's unfortunate. So, yeah, I agree, mate. Sorry, go on, carry on.
Yeah, so we'll move on then anyway. We've talked a lot about Anthony Gordon over the last couple of weeks and stuff anyway. It's getting a bit tiresome.
I'm just dying for it to go.
To sign him now.
I just want the breaking news like it's Friday. Do you know what I mean? Put it on at 6 o'clock and we'll just jump back in and do a show.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Breaking news is signed. Brilliant, done.
So we'll move on then. Joe Gomez, loads and loads of chat around Joe Gomez. Obviously 45 million was the fee that was kind of agreed for him. I'm shocked, Andy, that fucking Joe Gomez is being considered for a sale, to be honest with you, unless it's just that he wants proper first team football in a position that he knows he's going to play in every single week rather than being shafted around the back four. But like, he's such a good player and he's so versatile. It seems crazy to me that we're even considering it.
Yeah, and the great thing about Gomez was how he covered so many different positions last season. I think he played a little bit of right back at the start, and then obviously we were really unlucky with the injuries of Tsimikas and Robertson at the same time, and he had to do a load of left back, and he was brilliant there. I don't think he really plays centre half at all, and I am a little bit worried about the idea of him even as a fourth choice centre half, to be completely honest. I think given the injuries, he's sort of lost a bit of a yard of pace and a yard on the turn. And we've seen him exposed a couple of times in the season before last at centre half. So even though it is fourth choice centre half for Liverpool is a little bit different because Kanate is so injury prone. And who's to say Kwanzaa doesn't have a little bit of a dip, as it's completely normal for a young player to do. So, whether or not we keep a hold of Joe Gomez, I would still like us to sign another centre half. I think he might look at it a little bit pragmatically. You said 45 million there was what Newcastle were prepared to pay. And a little bit of that sort of balance in the books. Gordon 75 in, Gomez 45 out. You sort of balance the PSR in that way. But if we assume he's sort of a 45 million player, then you could probably look at it compared to the start of last season and say, well, we'd be pretty unlucky if the same thing happens to Robertson and Tsimikas at the same time. And we now have seen Connor Bradley emerge as a perfectly adequate backup right back. So they might say we've got full back covered and we need to sign another centre half anyway. And whether that's Vandenberg, who's looked very impressive, it seems to me as if he can do all the sort of nitty gritty defending very well, but the concern seems to be whether he's good enough on the ball. And the stats last season, I think he was at Mainz, suggests that he absolutely isn't. And that's a crucial thing for a slot centre half. So yeah, we'll have to see if but I think it might be a little bit of an opportunistic thing if they feel like we're better stocked at the back now.
It's interesting. It's a good point, isn't it? Andy makes there. I think the £45 million is a lot of money, and if Andy's right, and hopefully he is, that we don't get as bad luck as last season. Yeah. That £45 million can be reinvested into the first team probably. But it does, like, they've got to have a plan, haven't they? This is the thing. You can't just sell Joe Gomez with no plan. That's fucking dumb.
Yeah, well, exactly. And there's this whole rumour that we've done it on a couple of news shows this week about the deal collapsing. So obviously there's been a deal there. There's obviously been a talk of Joe wanting to go or exploring the opportunity. The club have obviously explored the opportunity. That's what worries me. Like you've just said, it would be absolutely negligent to let him go with not having to bring in another one. Is Vandenberg the one that's going to be replacing Gomez? I don't know. And that's my worry. I would rather have a replacement for your second choice centre half or your starting centre half as come straight in. We've been very surprised by Kwanzaa, which has been amazing. So he automatically gets that slot. But my worry is if we are prepared to let Joe Gomez, we need to have a plan. Now, if we've got a plan, and according to one of the journalists, we might have a plan, great. Am I comfortable with Joe Gomez leaving? No. Because I do like him. For everything that Andy just said, in terms of his versatility across that back line, his longevity at the club as well. And I just think that it's better the devil you know. I'm not saying he's the devil or anything like that. And he's not good at what he does. He's bloody brilliant. I'm just worried about the unknown.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it personally because I really like him, and I do still harbour the hope. Maybe I'm one of very few that he could actually get back to the levels that he used to play at.
Yeah, that season for that 2 years winning the European Cup and the league back to back, he certainly played his part. It was a absolute sham he wasn't getting picked for England even more because he's that good at what he does, and I really hope he can get back to those levels.
The other thing is here to consider, I suppose, Andy, is his value's never going to be higher again.
Yeah,
I don't think, unless he starts centre half for us for a year. And we've seen that with Nat Phillips, like, you know what I mean, when we held on to him slightly too long after he'd had his chance, and Reece Williams as well, to be fair. I mean, 45 million for a lad who probably is your fourth choice centre half, your third choice left back, or your third choice right back seems a pretty penny.
Yeah, and it's a bit of opportunity cost. I think, we can't sort of only sell the players that are completely surplus to requirements if we want to, for example, spend 100 million on an Anthony Gordon or get a world-class number 6 in or get a really sort of solid fourth choice centre half, and we're going to have to lose something. And there is that chance that, like we say, Robertson and Tsimikas are injured at the same time again, and we're playing somebody mad at left back like Owen Beck or someone. Not to say that I don't trust Beck, he looks quite good, but you will be losing something. You will be taking a risk there. We know that Liverpool don't have this endless pit of money and can't spend sort of 300 million on 4 fullbacks in the summer like Man City did that year with Guardiola, just to cover every possible base. We have to leave ourselves a little bit short somewhere in the hope that doesn't cost us, and we spend that money on this player that's going to take us up to the next level.
Thing, innit?
Yeah, and I think that'll always happen. And that's the sort of thing that Joe Gomez has been great for all these years, because we have had to leave ourselves short in some positions, but as far as the back four positions go, Gomez has been able to cover them all and is an able deputy in all of those positions. But yeah, if they feel like, okay, we're going to need to spend a little bit more to get Anthony Gordon out of Newcastle here, then they might just have to do it and cut their losses.
Okay. It's my worry about with centre half and money and all that stuff, but it's the number 6 position for me of that domino effect as well. If we're looking to bring in some money to try and have a offset the high cost of Gordon, or are we going to put that money to use for a number 6? Because we really, really need one of those.
That's where I think we can get, a massive improvement in the first team, is that midfield. I really like what the players have been doing in pre-season. I love, the tactics of all that type of stuff, but it does bring us on to the next one actually pretty well, because Andre, who we should have signed maybe a year or so ago, looks like he's going to be going. Well, Fulham are interested in him, which is quite interesting. But it does raise the question of how Liverpool would view a defensive midfielder for me, because I think, looking at the 2 pre-season games so far, we're definitely, I would say, I'm 99% sure that we're not going to be buying a destroyer like Paulinho anymore, or an Ugarte or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a ball-playing midfielder. We've seen rumours of that in the news. One thing that I am interested in is whether it really is a defensive midfielder, to be quite honest with you. And I know this is going to sound a little bit strange and stuff, but watching those games, I'm thinking, right, I'd rather have somebody like a McAllister there against Man City and Arsenal than a fucking Paulinho. Because if we're building out from the back, I just saw how much Endo struggled in the first game and Kurt Jones struggled in the Arsenal game and stuff at times. Yeah, it's funny because it's actually what Arteta's done in big games. Everyone thinks Declan Rice was the 6 last season. From the word go, Jorginho played the big games. The Liverpools, the Manchester City games, the Manchester United. He played the 6, and Rice played the 8. And towards the back end of last season, that became more and more prominent just throughout, not just... So it's like, you almost think to yourself, shit, big team, playing Man City, we need a defensive midfielder. Their press is so good. You might be better thinking about it the other way around than going, how are we going to get out? rather than a frigging defensive midfielder. Because we're going to get back, we're going to have numbers in. Defensive midfielder really helps you on transitions, doesn't it? But when Man City are pinning you back and you've got 10 men behind the ball, does a defensive midfielder really add anything? Or is it just about numbers and coverage of where your players are? How do you get out? How do you attack them? And that's where I think Liverpool will be going with a midfielder. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
Yeah, it's a really valid point, mate. I think we've been spoilt by what Fabinho did in terms of his recovery and his tackling. And we've obviously lost that now for a couple of years. But it's, for me, I don't think we need a Pauline who's going to smash people and take a yellow card every other game and, you know, stop the play and, you know, all that type of stuff. But I like what you're saying about the ball playing midfielder. I do think that McAllister did well in that position when he was needed there. But
he was brilliant with Casado at Brighton as well.
Absolutely, he really was. But I still think we got the best out of McAllister when he wasn't playing that position. And I look at what Rodri does, and I do look at what Declan Rice does. And you don't say Declan Rice is a fucking Paulinho smashing that. You know, that he's not that type of defensive midfielder if you want to put him in that bracket. But I still think we need somebody at that level who can maybe play the ball, but he's also a really good tackler as well. I mean, not to say McAllister isn't, but I just don't see him playing in that position. But like you said, we've watched the way against Betis when Jones and Endo were coming deep, and you are right, they did struggle. But again, that's not Endo's game, and it's definitely not Jones's game either. Whether it's being merged for that, I don't know. But I still think we do need that specific defensive midfielder, in my opinion.
What about you, mate?
Yeah, it is a difficult one because, you know, I completely agree with your point on you're playing Man City, you probably want a McAllister there rather than Endo. That said, Endo was possibly the best player on the pitch against City at home last season, but then obviously we build up in a different way under Klopp than we will under Slot. You know, that game was hammer and tongs, it was crashing in, and especially second half, like we'd all the play, and a lot of that was because they were trying to get out and Endo was just sort of smashing in. Now, in a game where it's like a little bit more of a chess match, you can sort of see that a ball playing midfielder would be more useful to us there. And I think, you know, with Endo towards the end of last season, I think teams did sort of clock on to the fact that you just sort of let him have the ball and he wasn't going to hurt you as much. Now, I like the way Endo moves it really quickly. I like a team that moves the ball quick and gets going and is a little bit more direct. But from what we've seen from Liverpool so far, that's not necessarily how we're going to build up. There's going to be a little bit of variation, and sometimes, you know, we're going to score counter-attack goals like we do with the first goal the other night. But as I think as Curtis Jones said himself, it's going to be a little bit more of a patient build-up at times. And, you know, if we can do it quick, brilliant. But if not, we're happy to go back to the keeper, get that box just in front to build up. And if teams flood that, then we're happy to go sort of out wide and try and do it that way, like the goal against Real Betis. So I agree with what both of you have said. I think it's going to be a ball playing midfielder rather than a sort of destroyer. And you look at someone like Andre, and on one hand, you sort of think, well, if he's that good, why are Fulham the only team in for him? And then on the other hand, well, Fulham were the only team in for Paulinho, and he was worth, what, 80, 90 million supposedly last summer. I don't think he had a good season last year, so maybe that's gone down, and he's away to Bayern anyway, isn't he? So you look at the players we have there. It's interesting the point Jay made. I thought, you know, you've got McAllister there, and we're not saying he's not good at the sort of defensive stuff, but he's more of a ball player. Endo's more of a destroyer. Jones more of a ball player. Szoboszlai more of a ball player. Gravenberch, we're not really sure where he is now. So we've got a lot of numbers in there, but not necessarily one who's sort of elite at the destroying side of things and elite at the ball playing side of things, like a Declan Rice is. The problem is Declan Rice cost 110 million, and are we willing to do that when we've got sort of 6 or 7 options there that can play there, and players who I can't see probably playing in the 10. I can't see Jones playing in the 10. Can't see Gravenberch playing in the 10, for example. So, you know, you're sort of saying there's only 2 options there and one sort of guaranteed. It's maybe like 5 or 6 players fighting for that second position, which will be interesting. But if he needs that, and that's the basis of how we're going to build up and how we're going to play, then work away and get who you want.
It's a really good point, but I'm looking at the history of how many teams that have won the Premier League, and every single one of them have had that solid DM. Every single one. You look at Makelele, you look at Carrick, you look at Yaya Toure. Sorry, Fabinho for us. Yeah. You know, there's always that player who does the destroyer side of things, and you think like the way we got ran through midfield quite often last season, and yeah, it's all great. We're having these conversations about when we've got the ball and when we've got the ball and we do this and we do that, but there's plenty of times last year when we didn't have the ball and we struggled, and we needed that someone just to smash someone and just win the ball back. And I just want to see that in someone who we sign. And I'm so happy with the conversations we've had this week about the way Slot's setting up, and when we've looked into the tactics and all that type of stuff. But there's a part of me that just wants that DM so I can just feel a little bit safe.
Yeah, no, that's totally right, isn't it? But I think a lot of the problems that Liverpool had sort of last season came in transition, and that's because we attack so quickly and we were leaving ourselves open. When what Slot's shown us that he's going to do probably this season is, as soon as the ball's with the goalkeeper, we saw this, didn't we, against Arsenal and Betis. As soon as the ball's with the goalkeeper, everyone just slots in. And it's a slow build-up. I don't think we're going to have as many players out of position under Arne Slot as we did under Jurgen Klopp. And that negates the need for such a Kante-style defensive midfielder or a Makelele, because there's just more bodies there. When you leave yourself open and Fabinho is the only man and everybody else is flooded forward, both fullbacks high, midfielders getting on the edge of the penalty area, your forwards all in the penalty area, you need an unbelievable DM in Fabinho to be able to cover that space. But I just don't see that Liverpool going to do that this season. And therefore, if it is a slower build-up, do you need quite the destroyer? Is it better to have someone who can get you into those positions? We'll find out, I suppose, in the fullness of time.
Yeah. I think the other thing is you're right to point out we're probably going to build up a little bit slower, and that's going to mean we've more of a defensive structure when we do lose the ball. But also in the press, it seems like what we're going to do under Klopp, it was 100 miles an hour and hammering to win the ball back all the time. It seems like what Slot's going to do similar to more what City do and what Pep does, which is we'll try to win the ball back straight away, but if not, that's fine. We'll go back into our shape now. And if you're in a better shape, obviously that sort of maybe negates the need for a sort of destroyer and somebody to sort of firefight like Fabinho was doing all the time, covering this massive, blade of part of the pitch in order to have to do that. I think, Arne Slot will have a vision for how he wants this Liverpool team to be. He wants, his centre halves to be good on the ball. He wants his two midfielders to be good at the defensive side of things and also be good on the ball. Fullbacks to overlap. It's very difficult when somebody comes in with our vision to implement that in one transfer window. And you look at someone like Joe Allen in Klopp's first season, actually does pretty well and comes and he fits in and he does a job. However, we sold him on and got in who Klopp really wanted. But I think Slot will have to do a little bit of that, working with what he's got for now. It may not be the ideal, exactly what he needs. Wataru Endo serves a purpose. He might just have to use him in a certain way this season. And maybe next year when there's more number sixes available at that high level at a price that we can pay, be more happy to do that. But I think, in certain positions, he might have to just work with what he's got this year.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, then we'll move on. Good news, actually. Real Madrid look like they're done for business for the season, which would be lovely, wouldn't it? It came out that Ancelotti said in the press conference a couple of days ago, the squad is closed, so we can forget about Trent Alexander-Arnold moving to Real Madrid for, until January the 1st, which is when the tapping up will have been official. I really hope that he does sign a new contract, obviously, but it is good to put to bed the fact that he's not going to go this summer and leave us crying our eyes out, to be honest.
Absolutely. But again, like we said at the top of the show, there's a good few weeks left yet. And what one manager says, and whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Ah, true, yeah.
However, when I look at the situation of Trent, I just see his loyalty just kicking in. And he's a future captain of this football club. He's going to be the next sort of one club man in my eyes. And Steven Gerrard-esque of captaining his club to greatness. I do think that plays a massive part. I think, we will have to make him arguably the highest paid player at the club. Yes, Real Madrid is very, very tempting. And I think there's a new generation, if you play devil's advocate now, there's a new generation of player now that grows up with this allure of Real Madrid, and there's like bigger celebrity lifestyle. And Trent is nothing like that. He's completely grounded, and that's where I just think that his loyalty to Liverpool will just come to fruition. I mean, I will still worry until he's sat at that table with that contract in front of him with AXA in the background. I will still panic because I just think the law of Real Madrid, of how they are at the minute, and given our bloody relationship with Real Madrid and over the years how we've lost, I never thought Steve McManaman would leave for Real Madrid. I didn't think Michael Owen would leave for Real Madrid. I didn't think Alonso was going to leave for Real Madrid, but the closer that got, you knew it was going to happen.
But this time you don't think that Trent Alexander-Arnold's going to go to Madrid?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to happen, but Football, it just bites you in the ass, doesn't it?
Yeah. What about you, Andy?
I'm with Jay. I think his loyalty will kick in. I'm for some reason, and it defies all logic. I'm not worried about this at all. I just think we're gonna get to September, October. We're gonna get a big contract, and everyone's gonna live happily ever after. And as I say, that's just based on a hunch, and I've nothing particularly other than what Jay said to sort of go off with that. I think if you're Trent, there's probably an element of, let's just wait a month here. Let's make sure Liverpool aren't going to go back to sort of fighting 7th and 8th and it all doesn't go horribly wrong. Don't think there's any chance that happens, but I'm sure, before you commit to 5 years in the prime of your footballing career as a generational talent, you probably just want to make sure that everything's sweet and sound after such a big change. But you'll look at it and you'll see the likes of Michael Edwards back in there, and you'll know that he's brought in these players to play with you that are of such high quality. They'll know that they've selected the new manager. There's probably, we hope one of the strongest backroom teams in place behind the scenes in order to keep the club, sufficient and financially strong and competing at the highest level. I think you just want to make sure that that's happening. But I think all the signs are there so far. We've seen that, albeit it's only been a couple of games, slots come in. He's kept a lot the same. He's made some tweaks. We look really good. It's only pre-season, but yeah, for some reason I just think he's going to sign, and it's all going to be fine.
Yeah, I think he'll sign a new contract. I'm not 100% sure he stays with us forever. I've got a feeling that, I don't know whether I'm just scared of this happening more than anything, but I do think he'll sign a new contract, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was something similar to what Alexis McAllister did before he moved to us, where he signed in December a new contract that had a release clause in that meant that Brighton were able to get a fee for him. Now, it was relatively low fee for the quality of the player, but it did guarantee the club that helped him some money for him. Basically.
Suarez again, wasn't it? When Suarez signed that new deal, and then within 12 months he was gone, but we got 75 million for him.
Exactly. Yes.
So we've seen it all before, haven't we?
Yeah. I really hope he doesn't go to Real Madrid, and I don't even know where he'd play.
Yeah.
If Liverpool play pants for the next 12 months, and he signed that contract, Liverpool are awful for the next 12 months, touch wood, and if like Andy said, if he'll have gone backwards, then it wouldn't surprise me.
It could be a case as well where he signs a contract and there's a £220 million release clause in it, and in 12 months Real Madrid trigger that. But if we're really good and he feels like he can achieve what he wants to achieve in his career at Liverpool, he might say, no, I'm alright, I'll stay here. Whereas if we're not, then it gives him the option. So it could be something like that. I'm not sure exactly how they work.
I think the thing is, I think you make a good point before, and we've been sort of saying this over the last few months. Obviously, Salah's contract, Virgil van Dijk's contract, Trent, it's poor by the management at the top of Liverpool Football Club, I think, to get into the sort of last years with three massive parts of our first team. Really poor, actually, borderline negligence, but I do think as well that Jurgen Klopp didn't help us with this. I mean, if the players... I think you're right. Trent's not even joined up, not even at a coaching session off the new manager. What we see is once a week, isn't it? Or twice a week if we're lucky, football matches. But coaching and being at the AXA and that is the biggest part of their job. And if they're not enjoying that, and they don't enjoy the new manager, the new coaching style and all that type of stuff, why would you sign a new deal and stuff like that? And then you've got are Liverpool going to be good? Are they going to be challenging questions? Yeah. But you kind of do have to really hope we have a strong start to the season that allays some of those fears, because for January the 1st, all of them can negotiate with Real Madrid if they wanted to.
Yeah. And
that's a scary, scary prospect. Having three, the core of your team almost, walking out the door for free next summer. My word. I mean, I know we free up some wages money, but this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like you said, the perfect word is negligence, but again, it's an awkward time where they've come into that last year, the contract, the manager's decided that he's leaving, unexpectedly, and there's a lot of factors in there. And I know Richard Hughes has got a little bit of flack online for what's he been doing since he started the job, or why has he not nailed these contracts down? But that's a very good reason, because there's a lot of changes, and that is in any job. Any job, doesn't matter what you're doing. There's people out there now, you think about your job when you've got a change of management and you're thinking about leaving, or you're thinking about staying in your current role, and you think, oh, I'll just wait, I'll just see how it is before I am noticing, or something like that. This is exactly the same. People can get too bogged down in the fact that it's Liverpool Football Club. It's my club, you shouldn't want to leave, and you should just sign on the dotted line. It's different. It's still a job at the end of the day, and you have to remember that if you're going to change your job, you have to think about the circumstances, and is the grass green on the other side? A lot of people have proved in the past for Liverpool that it's not greener on the other side. But I think that the club will get this sorted before January. We'll have an answer for all of them.
I don't think he'll do a Gerrard and stay with Liverpool no matter what, like no matter whether we're competing or not. I don't think he's going to be the type of player that's going to stick with us.
Yeah, Liverpool
fighting for
that's what I said before about the new generation. Yeah. They have to be, the club has to be at the top level.
Totally. And I think, if it's between winning trophies and competing for leagues and European Cups at Liverpool or competing for leagues and European Cups at Real Madrid, he'll pick staying at Liverpool. But I think if it's between competing for leagues and European Cups at Real Madrid or scrapping for 6th and 7th at Liverpool, he's got a decision to make there between loyalty and his career, and you couldn't blame him for that. But as I say, I'm fairly confident we will be fighting for leagues and European Cups in years to come. So
yeah, same here. Okay, potential transfers out then. Before we do that, we got a super chat here from Demetrius. Thank you very much, Demetrius. We'll go on there. Sign Mavropanos next Kyriakos, so that'll be Mavropanos for West Ham, won't it? Konstantinos. I just looked it up while you were talking before, just to double check that.
Is the next Kyriakos a good thing?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
got a bit worried then when I read it. I was like,
yeah,
really?
He was all right, wasn't it?
I kind of liked him.
I liked his.
He was crazy, wasn't he? He was good fun. I've not really seen him play actually for West Ham.
He's done well.
Yeah,
he's I think he's done okay. Big threat from set pieces, I believe. So
yeah, he's huge, 1.94 meters tall. Again, I checked while we were chatting there. Okay, so potential transfers out then. Obviously, there's been rumours of Diaz leading up to the summer, but nothing really for a little while now. Except Vandenberg wants by a gazillion football clubs, and Kelleher wanting first team football. All these things have kind of gone a little bit quiet though, Jay, haven't they? Really? I mean, apart from the Seth Vandenberg, I suppose.
Annoying, yeah, because bite size has been a pain to do.
Yeah,
because we've struggled this week, haven't we? But again, it's a good thing when you've not got clubs sniffing around your players. But yeah, they have gone quiet. I remember doing a show with Steve towards the beginning of the summer, and it was we thought, well, Kells is going to go. Kells is on his way out, because we're talking about Yaros and him coming in, Adrian going, and Yaros being the number 2 because Keller will probably go. But again, yeah, it's been very quiet, and it's strange really, because you would have thought that bids would have come in for at least one of those players.
So Kelleher, does he still feel like he wants to go? There's not been a lot of noise, has there?
Yeah, I don't think there's ever really been too much noise. I think there's an element of him. He's a very strong Premier League goalkeeper. He wouldn't have to drop down the leagues. He would go and be first choice in another Premier League side. He's obviously got international aspirations. He's sort of fighting for that number 1 shirt at the Republic of Ireland with Bazunu, who has it at the moment, and he'll want to play first team football because I think he's got a higher ceiling than Bazunu. So, he's got to consider that. I think he will eventually want to move on, but he's still got a fairly decent gig at Liverpool. Alisson does get injured every season for a period of time. So, you're guaranteed pretty much 6 or 7 Premier League games. You're guaranteed all the cups. You might get a few European Cup games as well there. So, it's not as if you're sort of sitting on the bench the entire season hoping for those 1 or 2 games when the first choice keeper's out. You're going to play sort of 15, 20 games for Liverpool. There's another thing, I guess, around, like we said, with Gomez. When's his value at its highest? If he sort of sticks around and doesn't play that much football, his value might drop, and everyone might think, we can get sort of 20-25 million for him minimum this summer, and it might just be worth doing as a sort of opportunistic thing. I'm not sure about Yaros. I've only seen a half of football from him. It seems like the club really rate him. It seems like he's a good young goalkeeper. Did he go to the Euros with Poland?
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic. So he went to the Euros. Now, third choice, I don't know what the standard of goalkeeping is like in the Czech Republic, but if you're the third best goalkeeper in the Czech Republic, having never had a sniff for Liverpool, you must have something about you. So whether they'll sort of give him a year training with the club, because he's been out on loan a couple of times, and then look to move him up to number 2, I'm not sure, but it certainly doesn't feel like there's a lot of noise from the Kelleher end of things about trying to force a move out, which is great because, as I say, the second choice keeper at Liverpool is a really important position, more important than a lot of other clubs' second choice keepers, and we've got a very good one in Kelleher.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Diaz then, Jay? I mean, I know a lot of people would quite happy to see him go.
His dad.
Yeah, his dad being one of them. I mean, are you like, would you sell Diaz, or is it more of a, if someone puts a bid in, I'll consider it type of thing, or would you actively look for someone to buy him?
I'm always in the old school mindset that if the the better player is playing at my football club, I have more of a chance of winning football matches, i.e. if we keep Diaz and we buy Gordon, I'm more than happy with that. I don't care about competing for place or anything like that. We've got both of them, and 2 other clubs don't have them, respectively. Normal sense, while I'm trying to talk sense on this show, it's very rare I do talk sense. But in my opinion, mate, I think if we sign Gordon, then Diaz is gone within 18 months. Just because of, there's been noise from Barcelona, there's been a lot of noise from his dad, and he hasn't shut that down. Diaz personally hasn't shut it down. I think those types of players, they always want to go to the Barcelona, the Real Madrid. There's been circumstances with Barcelona which we all know about, probably why the bid hasn't come in. Again, we've still got a good few weeks, but I think I was always of a mind, output from Diaz and Gordon and from that left-hand side in terms of goals and assists, there's not much between them. However,
I think Gordon got 10 goals, 11 assists last season, if I remember. So it was a quite significant increase on,
there you go.
on Diaz.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't talk sense. But what I'm saying is overall, in terms of the output, we're always marking that against Sadio Mane, which is a shame. But to answer your question, mate, if we get Gordon, I think Diaz is gone within 18 months.
I could see that happening, to be honest with you. And I don't know. What do you feel about him?
I think if we get Gordon, Diaz will be gone in the next month. Personally,
there you go.
I think we will do that. We've got so many quality players on that left hand side, and Diaz is one of them. And I would love nothing more than Diaz to get back to that level he was at when he came in for those first 6 months, because he was so exciting. He'd forced his way into the team almost over Mane, hadn't he? He was struggling at the time before we moved him to number 9. He comes in. And you sort of think he's going to integrate for these 6 months, and we lose Mane, and then he comes in. But he starts the League Cup final, over, I think it's Firmino. Yeah, man of the match. Isn't he man of the match in the FA Cup final as well?
I think so, right,
I think he is. And he starts the European Cup final, and you're thinking we've nailed this replacement here. And Mane was unique in the numbers that he put in. Well, unique and only aside from Salah, really, in the numbers he was putting in from a wide position. And there was always that question as to whether Diaz could do that. And he never quite proved that he could. So you're still looking at that from that point of view. But I'm not sort of desperate to sell Diaz. I would probably on balance swap Gordon for him. But as I say, if you told me, listen, we're going to give Diaz another year, see if he can get back to that level. If he can't, no problem. You go away to Barcelona, have your dream move, and we'll get an Anthony Gordon next season. I'd be fine with that as well. I'm really relaxed with that position. Yeah, I think we've got a lot of quality.
Yeah, that's the point there, is we've got a lot of quality on that position. So the reason why I'm relaxed about it with the Diaz situation is because, if Diaz isn't going to play, we'll play Cody Gakpo.
Yeah.
And then there's another player as well. Obviously, a report from the Telegraph this week has claimed that Liverpool aren't looking to loan out Fabio Carvalho. Says an exit isn't ruled out, but interested clubs have to stump up a significant fee for the 21-year-old. He's been all right in pre-season. I've quite liked it. I mean, a lovely little piece of skill when he stepped inside into that sort of 10 position from the left-hand side. He stepped in, didn't he, and drew a foul against Arsenal. Brilliant, and that's the type of stuff that you want to see from a young player who's really trying to get his Liverpool career started. Obviously, the slate's been wiped clean for everybody with Arne Slot becoming the manager and stuff, but it wouldn't surprise me if either he stayed or he was sold. But I think we're at that time where you can probably get 45 million quid for Carvalho because of his age and stuff like that, and his potential. So my one concern with Carvalho is if you keep Carvalho and you keep an Elliott, you're losing quite a lot of height in your first team with those two lads in there.
Yeah, you are, mate. And I spoke about Carvalho on the news show this morning, and he's sort of hitting the reset button. He's been out on loan a couple of times, and he said he's excited by Arne Slot and his ideas and what he wants him to do as a footballer, in terms of the more defensive side of the game. And he's explained about him running in behind the lines, and we analysed that, didn't we, on the podcast last week? Earlier on this week, about him making those runs, and it proved really well in a central position when he scored that goal. It's a funny one with Carvalho, isn't it? Because you sort of you don't want to quote, it's like a new signing, because I hate that phrase, but he is pressing the reset button on his Liverpool career, and if he does make an impact, bit like what he did in pre-season for Klopp, because, correct me if I'm wrong, did he start the game against Fulham in his first season?
I'm not sure.
When we played away.
Big impact against Newcastle, didn't he?
Yeah, he come on, and then he had a big impact against Newcastle, and then that was it then, wasn't it? And, I think since October 2022, he started 11 games. He's played in 11 games for Liverpool, so it's an awkward one. And again, I relaxed about it. If he stayed, sound. If he went, I'd be sound with it as well.
Yeah, okay, and then we'll move on then. The Athletic claims that Liverpool will firmly reject any approach for Joel Quansah this summer. I mean, that is good because it looks like we're selling Joe Gomez. So, I mean, selling Joe Gomez and Joel Quansah would be gross negligence.
yeah, it certainly would.
Written warning.
I think regardless of whether we sell Joe Gomez or not, we shouldn't be entertaining any offers for Quansah. I think he's the real deal. I'm really impressed by his development in the last year. You know, he's I think I saw something that might have been in the same piece on the Athletic, but he asked the Liverpool backroom team for like videos on Van Dijk and I think Chiellini and a couple of other top defenders in terms of like how to position your body, and he's clearly like a really reflective player. He goes home and he wants to improve, and he's got that sort of drive and desire. And anytime he's come in this season, he's made a couple of mistakes, which is always going to happen, but he's just looked really, really, really impressive and sort of come from nowhere. I hadn't sort of earmarked him a couple of years ago as somebody who could come in and make this step up, and maybe that was my ignorance on in terms of the academy and the players that are there. But I think there's also an element of he's had this sort of meteoric rise that maybe we didn't expect. So yeah, absolutely not. Keep that guy around. And towards the end of last season, Konaté was available and fit, and he was selecting Quansah over him, which is so impressive because up until the end of the season, Konaté was getting selected for the French national team. Arguably one of the best national teams in the world. So that's the level to which Quansah accelerated his development this season. I just thought it was so good. He's absolutely crucial to us next year, and I want to see a hell of a lot more of him.
Yeah, I think we all do, don't we? And then final one, Newcastle. I don't think we mentioned this before. They look like they're interested in Mark Gahey. I'm a little bit surprised they've put on in for someone like a Mark Gahey, to be honest with you. But wonder if that will shake the Joe Gomez stuff away or whatever. It might have a little bit of an impact and stuff. But there we go.
Or it might mean they've got money, a bit more money in, and don't necessarily need as much money to sell Gordon going forward. Sorry, other way around. If they've spent 60 on Gahey, they'll still be concerned about the PSR. So they might need.
Oh, they know they're getting a lot of money off Liverpool, so they're moving forward with Gahey.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. I wonder what. Like, I can totally understand them wanting to get rid of Anthony Gordon for PSR stuff, but they must have had a genuine interest in Joe Gomez.
Yeah.
And I wonder why they're not coming back for Joe Gomez
and go for Gahey instead.
Yeah, and why they
tried to get Quansah, didn't they?
Yeah,
that was the original report that came out. So they're after a centre half.
We know that. It could be Mark Gahey, it could be Joe Gomez. We're yet to find out. So there you go. That has been the Transfer Podcast. Hopefully by next week's Transfer Podcast, we might have a signing because we've done nearly 2 months of these podcasts now. And Liverpool are still the only club in Europe's top 5 leagues, yada, 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 to not make a signing.
What we'll do next time, mate, is we'll do a Transfer Podcast and we'll do it on like a summer from like 15 years ago. And we'll just use that squad and we'll fight who's rumoured to go.
Yeah, was that the Hodgson summer though?
We'll do 25 years ago, then we'll do something like that.
We'll do something mad. One of the good ones. It is a bit mad, really, that Liverpool haven't signed a player. Hopefully, we do sign a player, but it also, I do understand the situation with Arne Slot coming in and everything else. But anyway, I'm waffling. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Ta-ra.